And then this is an original house too.
I was born and raised in Clarksville, West Austin. Our original house was where Mopac sits right now, which is Missouri Pacific. Basically, people don't know the real name, which is quote unquote Mopac. Growing up in this community, it had real unity.
The best way I can describe Clarksville, I guess, would be safe. That would be the first thing I would say is safe, because we felt so safe, and we were happy, you know. And everybody here was like, we were all like relatives, you know. Just we loved one another. All the older people watched out for each other's children. If need be, they spanked each other's children, and we had such a great time.
It was West Austin, but we were surrounded by all the other affluent neighborhoods. You know, Clarksville was more of born out of the Pease Mansion, and you know, it was just a small black community where all the families knew each other.
On a Sunday, the mothers of the church, they wouldn't speak. Sometimes some people would call in the mornings, find out if they're going to church or whatever. But when you come out of church, when church was finished, this is how tight they were, and everybody was so in sync with each other. You'd ask one family, you ask Nanny Mae, what'd you make today? Meatloaf. You ask Mary Frances, what'd you make? Meatloaf. You ask Pauline Brown, meatloaf. Aunt Pluky, meatloaf. And so you go around the neighborhood, and you know, kids get to playing and everything. You get to eat, you know, food, you know, from different houses and stuff. So you get different types of meatloaf. You know, the sides may be different, but the original, the main course is the same, meat and potatoes, you know. And you just don't see that anymore. There's just no unity in the community. It is so, I don't know how to describe it. It's so dull. Miss Mays would have, during the summer, we'd all have to get up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning and meet down here at the church. And what she would do is line us up with the flag, and we'd walk up the hill to the park, and we would sing, "We shall overcome, we shall overcome." And I used to hate it. All the kids were half asleep, and the only thing we wanted to do is, you know, hurry up and get to the park, you know, or, you know, sometimes they would get buses and would take us to go roller skating at Playland, but, you know, that was the fun. And we were like, this is the summer. Why are we in church? We go to church every Sunday. We go to Sunday school every Sunday. Why do we have to do this during the summer? All the kids would complain. And we shall overcome, walking up the hill. But come lunchtime, and we come down here, and she would make this. I don't know what it was called, but it had ice cream, some pudding or something in it. I don't know. But that was the best part of the day. After we'd eat our breakfast and we get that dessert, when we eat that dessert, then we start, each and every one of us start fighting. I'll take the flag, I'll take the flag. We have to do it. We shall overcome. We're fighting for our neighborhood, you know. We're going to overcome. We're going to make it. Just because of that. That sweet dessert. It was so funny. We had so much fun growing up together. It was just, it's inexplainable because, you know, there's just no unity no more in the community.
Clarksville was the typical, you know, things that you read about in a history book about how America began, and how the church was the meeting place where they had all of your business meeting. It wasn't just where you had people going to church, but it's where you had your meetings for what the community would do. Well, it was like that in Clarksville as well. But in Clarksville, it was like a little town all by itself. You know, everybody knew each other. There was nothing you could do that people didn't find out about.
If someone passed away, Mr. Link Thompson, the doorkeeper of the church, he'd come over and he'd ring the bell. We could be playing somewhere, preached somewhere, you know, we hear that bell ring. Everybody comes to the neighborhood to find out who has passed. What member of the Sweet Home Baptist Church have we lost? What soldier the good Lord has taken home today?
our bell was like the Liberty Bell to us. You know, it was, everyone knew immediately. It was like an early form of the internet, you know, so we knew what was going on all the time. So I really loved living out here as a child. I absolutely loved it.
When we moved to East Austin, we'd come back to stay with our aunt. She had to give up her house because they ran that street was called Essie Avenue at that time, and they built Mopac right across it. They had to relocate a lot of people when they tore houses down to build in Mopac, and it just about killed her. She just didn't like it. I mean, she was so used to Clarksville. But eventually they finally bought another house out here and moved back. I think it affected the community a lot. I guess Clarksville was so closed in. We were kind of our own little community. And now you got Mopacs came through and it's opened it up, you know. So, tore down a lot of the houses that people lived in. You feel like some of your memories just was torn down. So, and it did something to the community. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it just wasn't the same once they built Mopac.
A lot of the people's houses were torn down. Mom held out. She's in the historical library on Guadalupe. She held out. She was the last person to move. She tricked us, the city of Austin. I don't have anywhere to move. I don't have anywhere. The whole time she was having our house built on Waterston. And when it was finally finished in 1970, and we've been there ever since. So she held out. She's in the book. She's in the historical books. And it shows her, I'm not going anywhere. They were tearing houses down all around us. I was 5 years old. I'll never forget it.
They were here all of their lives, my grandfather and grandmother. So, but I can't say that I actually left. You know, we never left. But right now, I'm still going to Sweet Home. It's just a wonderful place to be. I think many of the people that did move out of the community moved out because they just couldn't afford the taxes anymore on the houses. Because when they deemed the community historic, property taxes went up so high. My mother just sold the house across the street 4.5 years ago. And she held on to that as long as she could, but the taxes were so high that we just encouraged her to go ahead on and sell. Just go ahead on and sell so that she could sell the house. My mother was up in age. Sell the house and get some enjoyment out of the money that she was going to get from it. So, and that's what she did. You know, she had the biggest smile on her face when she says, you know what I did with part of my money? I said, what did you do? She said, I bought me a brand new car. I've never owned a brand new car in my life. So she got to drive a new car before she died. She died shortly after that, though.
I knew that we were going to lose a lot of families once Mopac came through. My mother, Mary Baylor, and a group of other residents got together to fight Mopac. But we lost, I had a lot of family that lived up on that area that had to relocate either in Clarksville, which wasn't much, and most of them moved out at that time.
Gentrification was happening in Clarksville. There was a group who came into Clarksville with the promise that they would help people with their homes. They would build nice homes. And it turns out what they were doing were buying houses, pushing out old families who had lived there a long time, and then building expensive homes. So a group of people got together, led by Mary Baylor, to try and respond. And the best response seemed to be for us to build houses in Clarksville where low and middle income people could live. So to do that, we formed a corporation, the Clarksville Community Development Corporation.
Mary Frances Baylor was the director and the president of the neighborhood center.
She was my conscience. she was the person who would encourage me, cajole me to do certain legal things for the neighborhood or non-legal things for the neighborhood. Mary Baylor was the motivator.
You know, she grew up there. Her mother grew up there in that neighborhood. Pauline Brown, who was my other aunt, you know, those two really wanted to preserve Clarksville because they saw what Clarksville was before we were even born. You know, that was their place, and they put in a lot of time, took a lot of abuse. Being from Clarksville, when you go to East Austin, and they always thought you were inferior if you lived in Clarksville, and I know she never wanted that ever happen.
From the beginning to the end, she never gave up. She or Mary Frances, they did not give up on Clarksville. Never, never. The neighborhood center, in honor of my mom when she passed away in 2009, the Clarksville Neighborhood Center was renamed. Here was a true soldier for Clarksville.
I am very proud of my mother. I know how hard she worked and the time she spent trying to keep the neighborhood together.
My family is the only black family that's left on Waterston. This here is from 1994, from A to Z. This here shows a list of all the members of Sweet Home, from A to Z. And this is how many pages. This is the missing link to all the black families. I mean, they're all gone. They're all gone. And they come back to church though. They always come back, you know, to church on Sundays. You know, charity begins at home and spreads abroad. And it may have spread abroad, but this church is the heart and soul and the faith and the hope of the members of this neighborhood.
That's my church. I mean, that's where I grew up. My grandmother, my mother, my dad, my sisters, my brother. You know, we all grew up in Clarksville. We all devoted to Sweet Home Baptist Church. I mean, I wouldn't know where to go on Sundays if I didn't go to Sweet Home. You know, when I'm on the road, baseball or whatever, you know, we had chapel and things, but when I'm in Austin, that's the church I go to, my home church.
Sweet Home, to me, is what's left of Clarksville. It really is. If they was to take this church in any kind of way, I would be so heartbroken, because a lot of our memories are still within these walls. You know, we can look up in the choir stand and see where our parents and grandparents and stuff sat at one time singing in the choir. A lot of the old folks had special benches they would sit on. Like right now, my mom's dead and gone. I sit on the bench that my mom sat on, and right in her spot. And you will see that a lot of us do that. You might not know, but like everywhere somebody sits in this church, their parents once sit there. And it's just a warm feeling.
Sweet Home for me, you know, it's other than being, it means a whole lot to me, because I've seen a lot of ministers come through this church. I've had family members who have passed away, and their funerals were held here. I've seen a lot of loved ones come to this church, and I've seen a lot of worship services here, a lot of weddings here. In fact, I was married here at this church, and this church means a lot to me.
I'm so tired living in this world.
this duplex used to be vacant lot, and that's where we all played softball, baseball.
Exposition was paved. A lot of the people, the black people in this neighborhood, helped pave the roads in West Austin. And we were still on earth biscuits. Earth biscuits are rocks.
Well, it was considered a poor part of town, but it was in West Austin, and it was a small black community that was not like what East Austin was at the time. It was maybe looked down upon.
I have lived out here for 61 years, and things have drastically changed.
It was all African American in this community, matter of fact. I feel a loss. And I feel a little bit bitter because I've talked to some of the people that have sold their houses. They didn't want to sell their houses. And they was left with no choice. They just couldn't afford them anymore, afford the taxes. So I wish you could go back to the way it was, but I know that can't happen. So I feel a little sadness and a little bit of bitterness.
And the guy that lived next door to me, I said, you're making my property taxes go up. He said, no, I'm remodeling. I am not adding on. If you add on or build something new, that's when the property taxes go up. And then, like I say, it's doctors, lawyers, dentists that live out here now.
This is gone. It's gone. We don't have that many members anymore. Nope. They don't have it. Look at all those black children. It's gone.
I would like to see this church filled up the way it used to be. This church used to be full of people that lived in Clarksville and their families. I would love to see that happen. When we have big events, they'll come back, to big events and stuff. But I like them to come back every Sunday. Come back to your roots. Let's build this old church up. Our forefathers built this for us. And I don't want to give it up, and I'm not going to give it up.
I think it'll always be Clarksville. My oldest sister, her dream is that Clarksville would return to its original Clarksville one day. Whether that happens or not, I don't know.
Only God knows what will happen to Clarksville 10 years from now. I pray this church will still be standing and strong.
It's sad to see where we started and not knowing after I pass away or whatever how it's going to end. That's what's scary. Will the youngsters fight for what we all stood for and their grandmothers and grandfathers stood for? That's my real fear. It's bringing tears to my eyes on that.